We've been making more videos than ever at the Creation Station, and we thought it would be a good idea to talk about the software we've been using. Each of us happen to be using a different set of applications to perform similar tasks. After we realized this, we decided to produce a few videos teaching and talking about the video editing software we've been working with. I'm a fan of free and open source software and try to use it wherever I can. This led me to learn how to use a program called KDE Nonlinear Video Editor, or KDENLIVE. It has met or exceeded my expectations, and I have enjoyed learning and using it. Join me while I give an example of how to compose and publish a simple video project in KDENLIVE. It could be helpful to have an outline when you're going to make a video. Here I've made a sort of storyboard, which graphically represents the action in the video. For simplicity's sake, the video I'm going to be making is just the numbers 1 through 6 shown on screen sequentially, with a 3.5 thrown in there just for fun. The seconds at the bottom of each frame in our storyboard is how long I want the number to be shown on screen. And I'll also show you on screen what I want the final product to look like, more or less. To start, we'll need KDENLIVE installed and the program running. If you don't have KDENLIVE installed, there are links in the description, or you can use your favorite search engine to find it. Here's the user interface for KDENLIVE. In the top left, we have the place where files will be stored once we've imported them into the program. On the top right is the monitor, where we can preview the clips or the project as a whole. And across the bottom of the screen is the timeline with the tracks, where we will be composing our video. To make a video, it helps to have some source material to work with. I've already prepared all the number images I need before making this video. I'll add these source files to my project now. In the top left-hand corner of the project bin, there's a button that says Add Clip or Folder, which I'll click on and go ahead and select all of these items and add them to my project bin. All of the files are now in the project bin, and in order to have them show up in the video, I'm going to drag this one over to the timeline. The timeline is a graphical representation of the composition of our video. On the screen right now, we have the 1 on the timeline in a track. It takes up about 8 seconds of the timeline, so it will show for 8 seconds. And it begins showing at all zeros, which means it'll start from the first moment of our video. If I press play in the preview monitor now, it will show the number 1 for 8 seconds, which is exactly what we would expect. However, according to my outline, I only want the number 1 to show up for 5 seconds, so I'm going to have to edit the duration of this image in our video. A simple and precise way to do this is to right-click on the clip inside the timeline and go to Edit Duration. The dialog box will open, and whatever number we put in on the bottom will become our new duration. KDENLIVE uses the timecodes hours, minutes, seconds, frames, so we'll have to change the seconds to whatever we want, which is 5 seconds, and it's done. I'm going to go ahead and add the second clip now. And you'll notice I can't drag it on top of the 1. KDENLIVE can only have 1 clip on the same track at any given time. I don't actually want them to overlap, so I'll drag the 2 behind the number 1, and they should now be contiguous in our project. I'll just give that a little test. We'll run the indicator over this, and yep, the 1 changes into a 2. Perfect. However, the duration of 2 is too short. I have to change it because that's what the outline says. A handy shortcut to change duration is to actually double-click on the clip. You don't have to do the right-click menu. So now I'll change number 2's duration to 10 seconds, and we'll keep going with the video. It's about time to add some more numbers, so number 3 is next. According to the outline, this number 3 has to be 8 seconds long, which is what it's already set to. So I'll go ahead and add a second number 3 for the 3.5, which comes afterwards. This second number 3, I'll have to change the duration on though. The graphic I have, which says 0.5, is actually separate from the 3. to get it to play at the same time as the number 3, I'm going to place it at the same time on a different track. There we go. However, it looks a little odd. The 3 is below the 0.5 bar. I have to change how the clips are stacked on top of each other. Tracks which are higher up on the timeline will show up as the top layer in our full video project. So we need to drag the 3 above the 0.5 in order for it to show up how we want. But I just noticed something. When I brought the 3s out, I left some gaps on the timeline. When the video plays over those gaps in the timeline, the screen will just be blank. We can't have that. There are several ways we can remove spaces like this, and some of them will be obvious, but there's actually a tool we can use that you can just right-click on the empty spot and click Remove Space, and it should work. Another option is to just select the clips, like by holding Shift to select both of them and just drag it over. And a third way is you can hold Shift and just kind of bandy box all of them and move them all over. So now I've gotten rid of my gaps that I had accidentally left. So I think we may have the general idea here, and I'm just going to drag out most of the rest of the video and change the durations as I go so that it matches the outline. I'll put out the 4, we'll drag out the 5, and change the duration, and it's looking pretty good. 1 through 5 were still images, but number 6 is actually a video clip. It actually works a lot like the still images where we just drag it out to the timeline. But you'll notice that there's this second bar, and that's actually the audio component of our video. When you want to place a video clip on the timeline, you need to make sure that you have space in the audio track where you want that video clip to go, as well as the space for the video part, which we've already talked about. Now I'll kind of scrub through this video and see if it's working, and it is. If we just scrub through this part, we'll see that the video plays at the same time as we're scrubbing it. It's not quite as simple to change the duration of a video as it is to change the duration of an image. So in order for this effect to last longer in our project, I'll double it up so that it loops through twice. There we go. It's working perfect. So now as far as our outline is concerned, the video is done. But I'd like to make it a little bit fancier before we hit finish with it. I'd like to add some colorful backdrops behind our numbers, and in order to do that, I need to make room on a track below those numbers so that the backdrop will show up behind them in our final video. The easiest way to do that right now is to add another track, so that's what we'll do. To do this, we'll right-click over to the left-hand side of the timeline, and we can hit Insert Track. This dialog box is asking us how many tracks to add, where we want to add them, under or above which other tracks, and what kind of tracks they are. So I'm going to add an AV track underneath V1, and you can also optionally name them. So I'll name this one Backdrops. I hit enter and we can see them right there. Our video is getting a little bit long, and it can be handy to have some keyboard shortcuts to help us navigate. A very important one is holding Control and using the mouse wheel to zoom in and out of the timeline. So now I've zoomed out and I can see the whole video in that tiny little section on the left there, and we're going to add some backdrops. KDENLIVE has a few tools for generating content on the fly, and among them is the Add Color Clip tool. So we can go to Project and Add Color Clip. This will let us add just a plain color, still image, that's the same size as our video. I'll pick blue and hit enter, and now it's added there. And I'll just go ahead and drag it behind the number, and we will see what happens. Perfect. We can see that the one has a blue background behind it now. I'm actually going to zoom in a teensy bit. That one is looking nice, so I'm going to go ahead and add a, let's say, a red backdrop for the number 2. I'll drag it out to the timeline and look at it. I'll zoom in just a hair and line it all up. Looks good. You can actually drag still images, extend their duration by dragging the side of them out, just like that. And that's kind of handy. So now the red is working. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill in a couple more of these. For the background of the 6, I'm actually going to use this picture of some desert backdrop, just for funsies. And it'll work the same way as everything else. Kind of just make it line up, and it should be good. Our video is doing great, but before we actually publish this KDENLIVE project into a video file, I'd like to add a little bit of some voiceover. Not much, just me saying the numbers as they come up on screen. There are several ways to do that. You could just record your voice in a separate program and import it the same way we do image files and drag them out to the audio tracks instead of the visual tracks, and that would work just fine. But KDENLIVE has a handy option of creating an audio track with a record button that you can just record inside of KDENLIVE, and everything works out pretty great. So to do that here, I'm going to add another track just like before, and I'm going to put it all the way at the bottom, but this time I'm going to select audio record track. And just like before, optionally, I'll give it a little name here. So now on our new audio track, we can see that there's a recording button, and it's got like a little level there. So I have all the voice work recorded, and I'm ready to transform this KDENLIVE project into a video file. So I'll go to Project and Render. Here on the render screen, we see a space with a file path, and that's where it's going to save our video file to. So I need to click on this little folder and give it someplace where we actually want it to show up. As far as the rest of the settings go, there's a slider bar for quality in the middle, but otherwise I recommend you just pick this option here, which is MP4 H.264 AAC. Make sure full project is selected, and you can go ahead and hit render. It'll snap over here, and it will compose our video together, and this just takes time. It's done, so I can go navigate to where this new video file is, and I can double click it. We can see here that it worked. I can scrub through and see all the stuff that we put in there. So that's pretty cool. Done deal. I hope you learned something and feel a little more confident. And stay tuned for further videos where we'll talk about some of these special effects.